Hello, my name is William Haddon, and today I'm going to be researching and developing my points I came across whilst researching what the target audience is who enjoy Gothic horror. And I've put a sheet up on my blog explaining some of the points that I'm going to go through and some of the notes that I took. And first off, when I started looking at Gothic horror trailers and what they were about, I started to realise that a lot of the content takes place way in the past, so Victorian times, Edwardian, around the same time that the novels actually started to come out. So you've got Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you've got Dracula by Bram Stoker, you've got Wuthering Heights, stuff that involves really dark stuff, which wasn't really heard of at the time. Things were happy endings, And what I came down to conclude with is that myself, I'm a massive Gothic horror fan. I love The Woman in Black. I love Peaky Blinders. There's some horror Gothic morals, and I also love Crimson Peak. I think is another great film, and they all take place in the past. And me being a historian, I love history as well. I can kind of connect more to these stories because they take place in the past. I find it really unsettling. I feel as though, looking at the research as well, going through the different demographics of who likes Gothic horror, I found that a lot of people had to have an interest in history to enjoy Gothic horror. That's not definite because you can't say that about an entire genre, but generally Gothic horror fans tend to have a love of history or the Victorian era, which I thought was quite interesting, and it's what influenced my trailer being set in 1902. Just the cusp between Victorian and Edwardian times, when science was still going and we've come out of this superstitious stage in our existence as humanity. But there was still a tiny hint of it there. There was, we've got all of this science, we've got all of these we've got this technology, we've got the combustion engine, but there was still that, what if God exists? What if there's a spirit in my house kind of thing? It's a very, very interesting concept that I thought I wanted to explore in my trailer. And let's move on a minute. I also found that during my research, a lot of older people tended to like Gothic horror. This isn't a definite, this is not solid fact, but I found that a lot of people who were older would be more interested as, the novels were set years ago, and also the literature. Nowadays we've got the internet, we've got online basis, but back when even our parents were younger, they only had books. A lot of older people tend to like Gothic horror as they're the classics. I also, looking at my research, which influenced a lot of my trailer, was that I found that horror goes through phases. As a genre, it goes through different phases. So the late 90s to the mid 2000s was a lot of slasher films. Then onwards they did a lot of torture porn like Saw, the Human Centipede, lots of very grotesque stuff with not much of a storyline. And I felt like people got bored of that. So The Woman in Black came out, which was about 2012, which took the box office by storm, and everyone loved it. They thought it was terrifying for a very low-rated film. It was only a 12A. It was terrifying, and I thought that was quite interesting because it had no gore in it, no any particular sources of violence, just scary stuff, just really scary stuff. And not too long ago, Del Toro's new film, Crimson Peak, came out, and I thought that was very good as well because it incorporated a lot of that kind of stuff in it. There wasn't that much gore. There was a little bit, and there was some quite disturbing scenes in a very modern sense, but they still had the root cause that the spirit is the terrifying thing, which I wanted to put it forth in my trailer, which is why there's no stabbing or death or stuff like that. It's just pure terror. Another interesting point I found is that, going back to that last point, people just got bored with slasher films and torture porn films, and I feel like the reintroduction of Gothic horror is very interesting because people are up for it. They're up for a fast-paced story. We've got lots of good British actors, lots of good British talent, Cumberbatch, Hiddleston, that can fill in the roles quite well, that play the role of the Victorian gentleman. Same with Daniel Radcliffe, he did a great job within The Woman in Black. And I think this is what appeals to people. So my conclusion that I came down to is that my Gothic horror audience will be slightly older to younger. I'd say about 16 to 65. as older people probably wouldn't like to see sit through a film they get terrified by. I also feel as though they had to have some sort of interest in history, some love of Victorian literature, and some extreme cases of people who just want something new. So this is what the target audience I'm targeting my trailer at. I'm going to incorporate lots of the stuff that I found into it and go along with the conventions of the genre as they're tried and tested.